JVB here with Symbiont Group. Once again, talking about some of the things that we're talking about with customers and clients on a whole range of different topics. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about ABM. We've had a number of clients come in and say, hey, we have a new product or we have a new service. We know it's a great solution. We know that it will solve all of these great business problems, and we want to do ABM. So typically that means that you have to figure out a whole series of different things, including what's that need that you're really supporting? What is that audience? How does that all work? What we've seen with ABM is that many people start to think about big, exhaustive ways of really looking at accounts, going into targeting different individual groups within those accounts, creating all of these very robust, very personalized messages, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you're guessing when it comes to a lot of it because you really don't know your product market fit quite yet. One of the things that we've seen be a better approach is to do something we like to call ABM Lite. That ABM Lite starts with a couple of different accounts, and it allows you to do a little bit more test and learn so that you're targeting particular areas and particular departments within an organization, and you're starting to feel out exactly how those different audiences are really interested in working with your product or with your service. We like to try a number of different channels within that approach just to see exactly how each of these different audiences are really consuming information and whether or not they're really ready to have that conversation with you on whether or not you can help them solve a particular problem that, number one, is there, and number two, is something that they actually care to solve. ABM Lite really means trying to balance between the message that you're trying to push out to particular accounts and getting enough research and insight into those accounts in order to make sure that it's texture or contextualized for those accounts. So the balancing act there is something that's pretty important, and the attempt is to really get a sense for whether or not the service, the offering that you have really is something that's resonating with an organization and really solving that problem to the point that they will purchase it, in order to then continue on to scale more broadly, more of a systematic, broader ABM approach for a larger scale set of audiences. Many people ask the question, what's the difference between ABM Lite and just the stuff I'm doing right now with my sales and marketing organization? And what we're seeing is that many times you have a target account list that the sales team is going after. And if they're not getting traction within the first couple of weeks or engagement the way that they want it to, they're just going to jump to another account list. And it's going to be this iteration of top accounts, but it's always a new revolving door of account lists. Instead, ABM Lite still has the intentionality to it that targets very specifically and systematically an entire set of audiences within a particular account, and still does a number of touches in order to sustain and make sure the engagement that you're trying to get is something that is possible to get. So would those be the same things in some more disciplined sales organizations? They might be similar for sure, but for most of the clients that we work with and most of the technology industry, we don't see that kind of rigor and systematic approach to top accounts. Clients have come to us, or prospects have come to us with 2,000 accounts, and they're trying to figure out how to do ABM. I think what they're really saying is that we're trying to grow as fast as we can. We're also trying to make sure that we're right about how we grow. For those particular examples, we try to do more of a one to few than a 1 to 2,000 as an approach, because you're trying to figure out first and foremost whether or not you're really targeting that right company and that right audience. ABM, if you've done it systematically enough, allows you to do that first instance of the one to few and then scale broadly to those 2,000 accounts if in fact those 2,000 accounts are truly the ones that you should be going after. The biggest challenge is always that test and learn component. You've got an idea, once again, that has an outcome that you know is valuable. The question still to many people is, just because it's valuable, does that mean that I want to put budget to it? So that assessment, that evaluation, and testing out of that message to targeted audiences and to targeted companies helps to further define and iterate. So as you quickly scale to 2,000 accounts, that you've already had at least some of that research done. You've got some wins under your belt. You've got some things that have gone poorly so that you can learn from all of those particular things. Some clients come to us and say, we have a very defined market that we want to play in. Maybe there are 80 accounts in the entire world that are really going to be the best for us. Now, I have to say that there aren't that many companies that have really seen that be truthful, but it does end up being this discussion that gets them right down the path of saying, 80 accounts, I got to do ABM. And we're not sure that that's always the right approach. Sometimes those niche accounts that you're going after, an exhaustive analytical approach to targeting a wealth of different people within an organization might even be more confusing than it is helpful. So just because you have a narrow band of accounts that you're targeting doesn't mean that ABM is necessarily the right solution for you. Conversely, if you have a wide set of audiences that you can go after, it also doesn't mean that ABM might not be a successful approach for you either. I think it's more about the complexity of what you're trying to sell and more about that engagement that's required throughout the organization in order to make sure that something was sold successfully and implemented successfully.